Welcome to Ag in Conversation, where Emily and Myfanwy, two friends and agri-optimists from Otago, New Zealand, sit down weekly to digest the hottest topics in the world of ag, bringing a deeper level of discussion and understanding to the issues and opportunities faced by agriculture and rural communities both in New Zealand and around the globe.
Good morning, Myfanwy. Look at you, keeping the dream alive with that Highlanders hat, eh?
Yeah, my hats are going to turn into a little bit of a feature. I had my Legendaries one last week. This week
We got a comment on that. Thanks, Legendaries. Yep, as we saw that you noticed.
Yeah, I love that hat. It was brilliant. I had to steal that day I was down there, and it was like summer or something, but it was sideways wind and god-awful rain and freezing cold. And I was dressed for North Otago. So I love that hat. But yeah, keeping the Highlanders dream alive over here. I'm still quite happy to support a team that doesn't really win a lot. Should be in red and black, I know.
Especially when you live in the Bren. Anyway, we'll move on. I think we've talked about this every single week since you moved.
One day I'm going to show up in full red and black kit and you're going to be so pleased. Anyway, I hope you've had a good week. It's just been flat out getting into calving here. Super busy getting everything organised since we recorded last Monday for last week's episode. Drafted all the mobs up to get them into the right calving time frames, although, you know, that's about as accurate a science as working out when a female's going to have her baby in the human world. Yeah, all go here. How about you? You've been away for the weekend.
Yeah, that has been exciting for you to get some calves on the ground, hey, and get the new season sort of up and going in earnest. Yeah, we popped up to Christchurch on the weekend. Matt's off at the Rabobank Executive Development Program in Sydney this week, so anyone who's done that will know all about that, but it's a New Zealand and Australia program that Rabobank run around executive development, obviously, around like farm leaders, farm owners, or people in like those general manager roles in corporate farming organisations. Some of the people in the people in New Zealand are amazing. Some of the people in Australia, jobs are huge. Like just the size and scale of it is so mind blowing. And like what they do, like tens of thousands of hectares, you know, just big. Australia. Yeah. We know that Australia is big. Like the numbers are crazy. What is crazy though is their feed utilisation. We win that. So whilst we might only have a few hundred hectares, we really make the most of that. And there's been quite a few discussions, I understand, on that kind of thing. Anyway, we went up there to drop them at the airport. So I got the joy of doing the early morning run to Christchurch Airport because the only flight to Australia, as any Cantabrian knows, is at 6 a.m. So you've got to drop them off at like 4:40 or something. It is lovely. So, yeah, and then, oh my God, we went to Bunnings. The other reason we went up there is because my parents have been in Europe. And we just hadn't seen each other. So it was like, well, we'll just make this all work. Anyway, went to Bunnings and hot tip for people, everyone else probably knows this, but they had little miniature trolleys and Izzy thought that was like the bee's knees and just sprinted around the shop. Burnt all her energy off, so great rainy day location to just like put two things of, I don't know, rubbish in the trolley and then they'll just run around the shop. Secondly, there was a playground, like a full-blown one with like quite a good slide. And then they had an arts and crafts station fully stocked with staff members helping them make stuff.
Oh, that's so cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, I went there to buy actual things, but it turned into a real, like, adventure for Izzy. So, hot tip, anyone looking for something to kill a few hours in Christchurch, Bunnings Tower Junction have you covered.
That is brilliant. That's actually a good top tip. And you're right, when it's like a wet day or you've just got a little someone who needs to burn some energy, how perfect. And they're actually doing something useful, you know, might learn to build something or do something at the arts.
Yeah, she did like a wee drawing.
Aww.
Yeah, and they were making rugby bookmarks, I think, the older kids that, like, you know, could do like the actual activity, but they were all about her just doing it. And then face painting and all sorts of things.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, Bunnings Tower Junction. Nice work.
Well done to them for allowing the parents to get on and actually get the jobs achieved that they need to in the shop because the kids aren't moaning to go to the park or the playground because they've already got it there. It's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a sausage sizzle too. They really tick all the boxes.
Yeah, it's a day out. Just to Bunnings.
Just to Bunnings. Yep. And then we topped it off with a trip to that second, so we really had a town day. We went hunting and fishing because I need to get Izzy some more clothes, and those fleeces are really good. And anyway, I said, oh, Izzy, do you want this one or this one? And she said, whatever, the pink and blue one, for anyone who knows the hunting and fishing range. And then I'd heard good things about the Stony Creek kids rain jackets. Anyone who's listening to this, if you know if they're good, worth the dollars or not, let me know. Anyway, we're trying them on to figure out what size. I didn't get one because I'm still on the fence. But she then walks around the corner and comes back and she goes, Izzy? And she had in her hand a pair of those Harlequin Stony Creek kids shorts, pink and black. Oh. So she'd gone and pulled them off the shelf herself and was like, Izzy? And then she went back and came back round with a camo pair. Brother?
That's so adorable. So she's really a shopping pro now.
Well, yeah, because their mum pulled out this horrendous Pig Hunters jersey. Like, I'm sorry, people, but seriously, it was a fleece that was camo to halfway and then bright orange camo to the top. Like, I don't know how else to describe that. It is not a statement of fashion.
No, it's definitely something that's practical in the bush, but not necessarily what you need your child to be cruising around.
So mum goes, Izzy, what about this one? And I'm like, would you, stop? And she goes, yeah. Izzy had the last laugh. She goes, brother.
Yeah, not up to her style standards. That's hilarious. Poor old granny put in a place.
I don't know what mum was thinking. But yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So there you go.
Oh, sounds like a great weekend. All round. Very good fun. Well, should we crack into the news?
Let's go.
So this week, there's only one topic that we have to start the news with, which is the price of butter. Now, look, we've discussed this numerous times on this podcast, the pricing of dairy products. It hasn't even
increased again, has it? It's pretty much the same as what it has been, around $8
I mean, it's
a block.
just slowly creeping up constantly, but
I think it was that TikTok video of someone who got the 3 kgs of, well, no, it wasn't 3 kgs, the big spreadable butter. I don't buy that stuff. I only get the blocks, but that was $17 something. I don't know where they found that or what, but they said that was it, right? They said it was a certain percentage of minimum wage. That's not what butter's costing.
No, it's not at all. No, and it's good news though. It's good clickbaity. Everyone gets irate about it. Everyone gets really wound up, and so you get loads of clicks on your news items. But then when you actually dive into it more, and I'd just like to state, it is not just butter. If anyone's gone shopping for anything recently, everything is creeping up. The only things that don't seem to go up super fast. I mean, have you tried to buy a cucumber? I know they're completely out of season, and I have this debate with my eldest who adores cucumbers. Yeah, they're imported, and they're so expensive right now. Tomatoes, so expensive. And yes,
I think we could talk about seasonal produce there.
Yeah, but try and explain that to a 15-year-old who has a special sandwich she likes to make with cucumbers in it, which I've informed her will be made again in the summer because I am not a millionaire. Everything is expensive in the supermarket. But the price of butter is what's hit the headlines. So there's been a lot of discussion around it. I've pulled out 2 articles here that we have discussed. The Farmers Weekly have said discounted butter prices for Kiwis not an option from Frontiera. And then
I thought that was good for Miles, just before you skip over to the next article. I think that it was good that he's come out and said, we're not having a secondary market, it's just not going to work, because I think it puts that option to bed. Because all these people were like, oh, we've got the idea. We've got the solution. We'll have a secondary price and you can sell it to us cheaper. And he's come out and said no. And we've even said the reasons why on this podcast. Fonterra's job is not to serve New Zealand dairy products. Its job is, as mandated by the law, to serve its shareholders, who are their farmers. But regardless of whether they were their farmers or separate shareholders, would be to get the highest price for the products that they sell, which is on the export market.
And let's remember how good that is for New Zealand as a country and for its economy. Yeah, I'm going to dive into this a little bit more in a second. And the other article was from One News, and they said, is there anything we can do to bring down butter prices? And the answer is not really. There is and there isn't. So if we wanted to protect butter prices domestically, we would end up having to run some form of subsidies, because you can't ask a farmer to produce a product and sell some of it and receive less payment for some of it. Okay, so that's how it's going to end up in the end. If you're selling teapots in a shop and you're selling teapots to Kiwis and you're selling teapots to Europe and you're getting different pricing, you're going to end up creeping the price of teapots up to the same price as Europe, because otherwise you just take all your teapots and you'd sell all your teapots to Europe. Okay, so we need butter in New Zealand. We need to sell butter in New Zealand, and so we're going to end up paying export prices. The only way to get around this is to really look at something like subsidies. So if the government was to subsidize the difference between a domestic price versus an international price to ensure that pricing structure for the farmers and to ensure that flow of butter into the New Zealand food supply chain. But who pays for subsidies? Every single taxpayer pays for subsidies. So it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's a ridiculous notion that goes in circles and makes people feel good about something when actually it does nothing other than create a hell of a lot of paperwork and admin and faffing around. Just, that is the problem of having, an open global market where there is a supply versus demand reaction, Like at the moment, the global supply of milk is lower than the demand. And so the price is high. And so all milk-based products are fetching a higher price. I would like to just point out that it is only just, a little bit above break even. And break even costs for farmers have escalated incredibly since COVID. Like, it's very difficult to explain that to people who don't deal with these massive numbers and the massive costs that go into a dairy farm. But everything, the costs have shot through the roof. If we look at pricing for labour alone, it's a phenomenal high amount. And I'm not against paying these people well. Let's pay them well. We do, I do, and that's what we do. But that price is built into that price of butter. So, do you want the people on farm to be paid less so that your butter's cheaper? Where do you want this reduction in price to come from? It's a massive issue. It's not just Fonterra is hoarding money and hoarding a huge profit, and that farmers are driving around in Mercedes. It's how a free market works. And unless we want to end up paying for it again in a roundabout way, there is not really a way to subsidize the price of butter. And like you said, Fonterra's responsibility is to its shareholders, who are farmers. There are also other shareholders out there that are non-farming too. So Fonterra is a business. It needs to run like that. And if Fonterra does well, New Zealand does well. The amount of money that pours into local towns and economies when dairy is doing well is phenomenal. And the same with the beef industry and sheep. When those businesses in New Zealand do well, the whole of New Zealand does well. New Zealand is not an urban country. It doesn't derive its income from other urban services, etc. It's very much a primary industry economy, and we need our primary industries to do well. It flows on to every other part of the economy. So there endeth my preach on butter, because I've gone on for long enough.
Well, my only other question about butter, right? Like, I don't have any questions about butter, but like, if we started with butter and subsidising that to make it cheaper, who's going to then come and subsidise nappies? Like, has anyone tried to buy nappies recently? The cost of them has gone through the roof more so than trying to buy freaking butter. Or who's going to come and subsidise? I'm not going to talk to Myfi, buying a cucumber out of season, because that's ridiculous. But like last year,
I know,
there was a shortage of pumpkins in pumpkin season, and they were like $7 or $8 a pumpkin. This year, $3, because we've got lots of them. So my point there, though, is as well, if we start subsidising it, when the markets turn around, we will still have to pay a high price. We've talked about that before, that if we have a domestic price that holds steady, that will hold, then we'll miss out on the lows as well. So it is a very challenging topic. I just would love to know how many blocks of butter we're still selling in New Zealand, and who's just stomaching this cost, and who's making decisions. Are we still selling the same amount of butter as we were a year ago when it was $5 a kg? Or or maybe it was 2 years ago now. Or are we selling way less butter or way more butter or whatever? Like, it'd be just, well, obviously not way more, but it'd be so interesting to know.
Yeah, it would do. And look, I have a lot of sympathy for families who are struggling and unable to buy these products, because at the end of the day, they're then forced to buy margarine, and that's a severely inferior product. And I'm not biased at all. It's literally been proven. It's a couple of molecules away from plastic. That is not a product that you want to be fed to young children, etc. And we want butter to be in the...
You'd go without, wouldn't you, with it, rather than have that option?
Yeah, and so do we need to have a big discussion as New Zealand around food supply and our food chains? Yes, both of us have banged on about this numerous times on this podcast, yes, we do need to have a big discussion and a big strategic plan on where we're going as New Zealand. But is it the dairy farmers' fault? Is it Fonterra's fault? Do we want subsidies on butter? No, we don't want any of that. But we need to have a really good think about where we are going with our food supply in New Zealand and making sure that those families who are on the edge can actually afford to access the fantastic butter that we produce here in New Zealand.
Absolutely.
Right, that's enough butter.
I think we're on our hobby horse and it's been 17 minutes of it.
Of butter chat, yeah. Butter and Bunnings so far, guys. We bring you all the great content here. At least most people are listening to this during calving, so they'll just be desperate for any connection to the outside world for all our dairy farmer listeners. So hopping on to a next topic. This is a really cool article I read in Farmers Weekly. Veggie grower field tests New Zealand's first laser weeder. So a company, a Southland Growers down south, obviously, Southland Growers, So Sweet, has just introduced the Carbon Robotics G2 200 laser weeder. So they are the first grower in New Zealand to buy and adopt the technology, saying it's a step towards more sustainable farming by cutting herbicide use by 80%.
Wow.
So Sweet grows parsnips, carrots and potatoes. So it's how it does it is it uses high resolution cameras, artificial intelligence and laser accuracy to detect and remove the weeds without disturbing the soil or crops. So that's pretty exciting. They're testing it on 2 hectares of carrots to start with their view to use it full on, like in earnest, flat tack once the spring growing season kicks off. But the colder, he said that the colder Southland climate means, they probably spray a lot less because they don't have the pests and diseases challenges you would further north. But weeds still grow fantastically well down there, so the machine's going to help with that. So how cool that someone's jumping on this technology that we hear so much about and it's actually rolling out in little old NZ.
Yeah, I think that's wicked. So exciting to see that. I've got visions of laser kiwi from the flag running around the paddock, but I know that's not quite what it looks like.
God, that was a time, wasn't it? I love how we can't take anything seriously.
But no, I think that's epic. I hope they call it laser kiwi. That would be cool. If they pet named the weed eater laser kiwi.
Right, So Sweet. We need a picture of the laser kiwi on the side of your robotic laser killer, weed killer. That would be absolutely fantastic. Right, and then for our final article today, we're going to chat about a strong first year for DIN's North American push in the Farmers Weekly. So DINS is short for Dairy Industry New Zealand. Deer Industry New Zealand. I knew I was going to do that. I was thinking that when I was doing this article. I was like, I'll definitely say dairy. Deer Industry New Zealand's North America push. So basically, I'm not an expert, but from what I understand, a lot of venison has previously headed into Europe and into the supply chain and into restaurant chains, etc. And so...
Which is why it dove so badly, like the worst over COVID, because there's no real domestic... Or not domestic as in New Zealand, but there's no real domestic eating of it. It's all restaurants.
Yes, massively. That's a very good highlight for it. Yeah, of what the problem was. Yes, exactly. And so DINS needed to do something. So they have partnered up and formed NARA, which is a joint industry project with Deer Industry New Zealand and 5 NZ venison exporters and the Ministry for Primary Industries, which used to be the Sustainable Food and Fibre Futures Fund, but it's now replaced by Primary Sector Growth Fund. And so they teamed up, and in July 2024, they launched into the United States. They were able to capitalize on a new interest in novel, healthier proteins. So quite interestingly, they market alongside protein segments such as bison, which was quite cool. I was like, oh yeah, of course, that would be like a novel, healthier protein that they'd have access to over there in the US. And they said it's been a really successful year. They've got a lot more awareness, they've got a lot of uptake, a lot of interest in venison, and it's been fantastic. So they're hoping to keep capitalizing on this, keep driving forwards. So they're developing new products that work for that market, pushing them into the fresh market using localized packing innovations and influencer campaigns. And it seems to be going from strength to strength. And Ag Minister Todd McClay said it was great to see such a successful example of the impact local government plus primary industries can have when they team up together. And just fantastic for the venison market, isn't it, Emily? Because like you said, they had a horrendous time during COVID, and it's really great to have some positivity for them, and really great to see the US embracing venison as a great healthy protein source.
Yeah, I think it's awesome to have some alternatives, because like they previously were some horrific figure, like high, only being sold into restaurants, which meant that when they shut down, the market dropped to nothing. Interestingly, velvet goes to Asia, if people wanted to know that. But anyway, the meat, I think that's really cool. The US, like, there's such a big market. I think it's so great that New Zealand's going more into that in like all aspects of red meat. It doesn't surprise me that venison's got a bit of a appeal over there, because like Western culture, cowboy culture is all having its moment. Hunting must be kind of, I guess, pushed alongside that. If you can't go hunting but you want to try the meat, like, I kind of see that maybe they're bouncing off the back of that, as well as healthy alternative proteins.
That's a really good point.
And so venison just ticks so many boxes, and you can imagine it's kind of sitting on the shelves of Whole Foods or something like that, where people want the provenance story, and like so many of those venison outlets have such good stories as well. So yay, love that. Love that. Hopefully that's going to be reflected in the price that the farmers are getting here in NZ.
Yay, which is always good. Yes, I was just thinking there while you were talking, I actually have to send my sister down. She loves shopping at Whole Foods. She's living the California dream. And I'll have to send her down for a bit of an investigate and see what Kiwi products she can see in there, and any of our
that'd be interesting
prime cuts of meat, what she'd love there. Right, so we're just going to hop in and thank our partners, Cinta, this week. They are running a survey currently where they are looking to interview farm workers, so not farm owners, across New Zealand, to understand how and why they use the support services that are provided for farming on their day-to-day. So every single respondent gets a $50 Prezi card for taking part in a 7-minute phone call. That's a pretty good return on your investment of 7 minutes, I reckon. And to register, they can hop onto the link that we will share in our show notes. So if you have a team or you are a team member, please go along and support Cinta with this survey. It'll be really interesting. It's to help their agri partners out there understand how they can better serve not just farm owners, not just contract milkers and share milkers, etc., or managers on farms, but how they can support the day-to-day farm workers and how they can better serve them. So hop onto the link that's in our show notes. Get yourself a $50 Prezi card for a 7-minute phone call. Right.
How awesome is that?
It's pretty awesome, eh? That's a good return on investment, and that $50 can be used at so many different places, which is really good fun. So there seemed like only one topic that we could discuss. Well, there's only one topic in my brain currently, other than the price of butter, which actually I'm not even taking much time in my brain, and that's calving. So I thought it might be a bit of fun to do a bit of a dive into calving. So bear with us to any of the regular listeners who are dairy farmers and have spent many years farming, but I think it's about including everyone and to chat about what's actually going on, and when your dairy farming friends disappear for 2 months and you're like, what on earth are they doing? How can it be that hectic? A little explainer for why it is so hectic. So what's going on? What's happening at calving? So calving is what our whole season builds up to every year, and what we plan for years in advance towards each calving season. And why do I say that? Well, it starts when you start getting the cows in calf and mating, but it even starts before that. It starts at the winter feeding, before the calving, before that. So it's all this massive cycle where you are building up to try and create a really nice compact calving. So the more compact your calving spread, the better. You get your cows in calved early, get them underway, milking, producing well, get them recovering well from their calving, which is never an easy, any females listening will know, it's never an easy process. We need them up and recovering and cycling, so getting back into their natural cycle of coming on heat, etc., every 21 days. we need that all running well before we hit into late October and it's time to kick it off again, or depending on where you are in the country, different timings. So it's a really important time of year, and it's a time of year where we often talk about, we've talked about it plenty on this podcast, about the 1% and the difference that the 1% make. But calving is really, it's that accumulation of all your effort, and then you have to work really hard just to do a good job at the basic things and do it really well. And I say basic things, I mean feeding your cows, making sure everyone's in prime health, etc., and looking after the calves. They are basic things, but they're time-consuming things, and they're things that are so important. And so you have a massive pile-on of a lot of 1%ers that make a heck of a difference to your season. And so farmers tend to go to ground. You will see us at the sidelines of sports dressed like homeless people. You will see us on, appear in the supermarket in our gumboots, running in to grab some supplies and some food. You will see us running into town for those bits that we've lost. But for the most part, we tend to stay on farm and just stay on top of everything. It's a critical time, and it doesn't matter if you've got the most amazing team. You need leadership to be there. I've been told a few times, and we get back to the old debate of how people can't understand that a female might be running a farm. But anyway, it's 2025, guys. But I get told a lot, it's fine, just get a calf rearer in and get someone in there. You'll be fine. You can leave the farm for a week. You cannot leave the farm for a week. So much can happen in that period of time. And it's so critical for setting us up for success. So what is going on? So obviously, cows are pregnant. The pregnant cows, we are watching how much they eat. We're making sure they're eating plenty and ruminating a lot. If you're lucky enough to work on a farm with any form of collars, you'll be able to track ruminations, which is how much time the cows sit chewing the cud. For those who are not in the know, cows have the 4 stomachs, in quotation marks, and they bring the cud back up from the rumen and they chew it again around in their mouth and then swallow it back down again. Sounds feral, but it's great. It works well for them. And when you see a cow sitting down, chewing with its jaw, that's a very happy cow. So that ruminating time is very, very, very important for a cow and a very good measure of her health and well-being. So we're getting those cows when they're springers. We're making sure we call them springers because their udder is springing up. So when you hear those terms, that's what's going on. So you get the springers, you draft them up. These are cows who are going to calve soon. And you make sure that they're ruminating well and they're eating well. Although as they get closer to actual birthing, they're unable to eat as much. Anyone who's had a baby will know how unsettled you feel and how full you feel. And there's not much room left to eat anything inside you. And so they do drop off with their ruminations. You can track that. And then they'll calve. Now, calving is a big process. Cows are better built for it than humans giving birth, far better built, and most of the time they will get on with it by themselves. Our job is to constantly be checking, and we're out at all day hours of the day and night going out to check the paddocks to make sure the mums are all happy and settled and make sure that babies are all alive and arriving well. Something that can often happen is the membrane of the sac that the calf is born in can get stuck on their face, so you can save a calf's life by being out there and pulling that off and keeping the calf able to breathe, because if mum doesn't lick that off the baby quick enough, the baby can pass away. Making sure that all the legs are in the right place. A calf comes out with its front feet first, and then its little nose pops out, and then the rest of the calf will pop out, all going well. But there's a lot of thought has gone into the breeding of that cow and making sure that the right size bull is used for the cow so that she does then have a successful, easy labour, because anyone who has farmed cows will know how difficult it can become if you have far too big a bull over far too small a cow, and how traumatic that can be for all involved. So babies are born in the morning and usually in the evening as well when you get into peak times. We will go around and collect the babies from the paddock and bring them up to the shed and get them all tucked in nice and cozy. Every calf will then get 2 litres of colostrum. They will either get tube fed that or they will get fed that straight from the feeder. And then in our instance here, we have, and most farms have, a separate calf rearing team or person who is the absolute legend on farm. That is the person and the people with the most patience, the most dedication, the most care, and they just pour it into those babies. They look after those babies for however long they might be on farm. There's a whole process to ensuring that the calves get the right quality of milk as well. So when a cow comes in for its first milking, the milk is stripped from the cow, then we test that milk and we work out using a Brix refractometer. We then test the quality of the milk, which is basically the thickness of the milk. It's the same testing device you use for wine quality testing. And we pop it onto the little plate, look into the little device, see the quality of the milk, put that aside, and give that very top quality milk to the babies, the fresh babies, to make sure that they get a lot of passive transfer of antibodies. So the same way that when a mum feeds her baby breast milk, you get that passive transfer of antibodies from the mum to the baby, we have the same with the calves. So the calf rearers will then make sure that that really good quality milk is into their bellies, and so they've got happy full bellies, and then they carry on through the calf rearing system, slowly adding meal and adding hay and lots of snacks before they head outside. And I will promise to post videos when we pop the calves outside, because that is one of people's most favourite things to watch. Calves, when they go outside from the shed, absolutely have a ball, skipping around in circles with their friends and running, and yeah, it's quite entertaining, so I'll make sure we post that. So what's happening with Mum? Well, this all happens. So Mum comes in for her first milking. We have quite stringent hygiene procedures to wipe down her teats and make sure she is teat sprayed and kept really clean, because it's a very high-risk time for mastitis, which is an infection. Anyone who's had mastitis knows it's not an enjoyable situation. I like to think that cows milked by females or by female-run operations have the best life, especially those who've given birth and had babies and fed babies, because I sat down and had a little chat to my chaps the other day about what letdown feels like. The poor cow, that feeling of letdown, that few seconds, is actually quite a startling feeling, the first milking. So we need to take a lot of care, a lot of kindness with those heifers, those young girls who's their first milking. So we look after them, we get them all settled down. It's a whole new experience for them. So we have to remember that these are freshly calved ladies and they need lots of care and attention. So then Mum heads off and she goes off into the colostrum mob, and which is the ones who are still producing milk that is not ready for supply to the human food supply chain. And so that milk is then stored up and fed out to the babies. And as it gets further away from her day she calved, the milk quality drops off in terms of passing on immunity through the milk. So that milk then goes to the older calves. And then once she's had 8 milkings, she gets tested. And if her milk is of high quality, she pops into the milking mob. And we test again the milk, and then she's into the milking mob. And once you have enough milkers, which we are almost there, then we can start supplying and the tankers start rolling in. So anyone following any farmers on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, you'll see lots of happy farmers when the first tanker rolls in and we start getting paid. So a lot of work goes in before we even get to the stage that milk starts heading off to be made into luxury butter products. But yeah, so hopefully that gives people a little idea of what's going on. And like I said, feeding is so critical. We're constantly feeding, we're constantly checking. With the colostrum mob, it's important to feed them 3 or 4 times a day to get them up and eating, because they do rest a lot, but it's a fine line balance between rest and getting them eating well enough and getting their rumination right back up. So yeah, there's a lot of detail to be taken care of. There's a lot of things to do right, but with the right team and systems and processes in place, you can actually have a really good time during calving. And I popped on my socials the other day that it's actually my favorite time of year in a way, because I love actually physically carving a cow, and that satisfaction of bringing the little baby into the world, leaving mum and bubs, having their first feed together, and a happy mum that's, could have had a miserable time if she was trying to do it on her own. So yeah, there's lots of fun times to be had in calving, but by the time we get to mid-September, we all do look a bit like The Walking Dead, and please be patient with us if you're expecting much from us, because the brain power is very much focused farm only. But a really great time of year, and it gets us off to a great start, hopefully, if it all goes well, and into a fantastic season, hopefully. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing with Vanway. I think it's always interesting to see how systems work in the different parts of the year, and even within that, some dairy farmers were listening and think, oh, we don't do that, or we do this. Like, every system's unique, but I think that gives a real broad brush sort of overview of what's happening, which, yeah, like you say, is a really critical time of year to setting you up for success not just for this year, but into next year as well.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. It's going to be great. Hopefully, this is a lot of pressure as well on this farm this time for me, because it's the first year on this farm, so you're still just like finding your feet and working out. There's certain paddocks I hadn't even been into until last week, when I did the farm drive. So yeah, there's a lot going on, but it's going to be great. And wishing all our dairy farming listeners the best of luck. And drop-offs of baking and pies and bits and bobs are always greatly received if you have dairy farming friends at this time of year. So yeah. Right, to finish up, I have a really cute recommendation. Emily, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but in the Farmers Weekly, they had a really great article about a North Canterbury mum who has launched a business at home. So she's launched gumboot stickers for kids. Her brand is Gumbits, so a bit like gibbets, but Gumbits. And this started from something that I'm sure you agree you have had this problem. I didn't have this problem with my kids because I insisted on importing funny little boots from the UK that I loved. But kids go to daycare or preschool or kindy, and there is especially in rural areas, a huge pile of small red band boots at the door. And inevitably, even at primary schools, when it was wet days, the kids used to take their gumboots to primary school. There would be a huge pile of them at the door, and inevitably you go home with someone's two left boots, someone else's boot, one giant boot, one small boot, and it's just chaos. So this mum has had enough, and she has invented these amazing stickers, and they're like, she said they've got super strong glue, really good. And I think you'll have to try these with Iz, because these are really cute farming designs or just fun designs. And yeah, so you cover up your gumboots, and then there's no worries that you're going to end up going home with the wrong one, unless your stickers are so cool someone just wants your cool stickered boots.
Yeah, I actually saw this before you shared it, obviously being in the realm
I thought you might have.
Small red bands. Our red bands already get bedazzled with sticks most days, actually, before they go to preschool. Different items get put on them, but yeah, having some that stay would be really cool. And I think kids love gibbets, and I think that personalisation factor as well would be really cool. Izzy doesn't have too much of an issue with other kids having like big mountain, because we live rurally, but she goes to preschool in Wanaka, so like not every kid under the sun there's not like the whole preschool's worth of red bands, because they all have I call them town gumboots, like pretty ones.
Yeah.
Or no gumboots. They're just regular shoes. But yeah, my child doesn't wear anything except for gumboots, so...
Well, they're actually really practical and easy.
Well, it's her own choice. I would put her in other shoes, but by choice. But yeah, I saw them. The other cool thing I saw one mum do was she put the tractors on the outsides so they knew what foot to put them on. So she had like the moo-moos needed to touch each other and the tractors needed to not touch each other, and then you had them on the right feet. So I thought that was quite smart.
That's a really smart idea. Well, yeah, sorry, I should have named the lady who did this. So Elisa Wilson. I think everyone needs to go along and support her Gumbits business there if you were in that age of stage. And anyway,
I don't know if you need to be in that age or stage. Gibbets are around. I reckon, I could see you rocking around with some on your gumboots. She might come out. You know how Gibbets sort of started with kids' ones, and then now Gibbets, there's like wine glasses and coffee mugs and Stanleys and all sorts. She'll come out. That'll be the next lot. There'll be Gumbits for all, and she'll have mum stickers and dad stickers and everything.
Well, look, when there's a cup of tea one, it's going on, okay? So there we are, there's a challenge.
You've heard it here first.
Fantastic. Right, well, thank you all so much for joining us this week. Thanks for listening in on Calving Chat. I hope for those of you who aren't farming or aren't dairy farming, that was in some way useful. And Emily has this amazing series she's organised for us on farm succession coming up. So there's a few special episodes planned. We've already pre-recorded, so that will be coming out for most of August, and a few other treats for you scattered in and amongst it. So over and out from me physically, and I'll see you all on the other side. Although I'm sure there'll be plenty of carving content sent your way via the socials, so keep your eyes on the socials.
Yeah, looking forward to jumping into this farm succession chat. So yeah, for the next 4 weeks we've got different experts jumping in, and yeah, can't wait to hear you guys' feedback on what we're talking about.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us as we chew the fat on what is front of mind in the ag world this week. We look forward to sharing next week's episode with you. Head to our socials and let us know what you think. We welcome all feedback and would love suggestions on what you want us to dive into next. If you enjoyed the episode, we would really appreciate if you showed your support by sharing, liking and rating our podcast. It really helps us reach new listeners. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.